Hey, Sean, you got any injury updates on Tremayne and anybody else?
Yeah. So Tremayne Anchrum, I mean, what a tough guy. I mean, he broke his ankle on the first play of the game, played another snap, and then ended up exiting after that second play. So he was having surgery this morning. Tough blow for him. That's a shame. Troy Hill got his groin. We're waiting on those MRI results, but it did look like it was a pretty good, groin injury that he suffered. And then Cobie Durant got his hamstring. So we'll see how he's feeling, but it was a grade 1 hamstring strain for him.
How late in the game did that happen for Cobie?
He said it, I don't know exactly when it occurred, but he said it actually occurred prior to his interception, which lets you know this guy can freaking roll with a strained hamstring. So I think it was covering one of our kickoffs, but he said he felt it throughout the game, kind of gutted through, and really pretty impressive by him to be able to push through a soft tissue injury like that, especially as a corner.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Gilbert.
Hey, Sean, after the injury to Tremayne, how do you think the offensive line responded, and how did Alaric do at guard?
He did really well. I think there's some things that we can clean up, but I thought the offensive line as a whole did a great job. Really loved the response, that we were looking for from them. I thought they played well. I thought they got good removal in the run game. I thought they protected really well. I thought Matthew did a good job of playing within the timing and rhythm, but AJ came in, did a great job at that right guard spot. I thought he and, Havenstein had a good rapport. He and Coleman on some different combinations. And so was really pleased with AJ, and it was really impressive on short notice for a guy that didn't take a single rep at guard this past week to come in and play the whole game and play at such a high clip.
And how did you feel Cam Akers responded after the week he had with the Bills? And then what did you see from Darrell Henderson too?
Yeah, I thought the Bills did a good job. I thought, that's why you don't really get too caught up in stats, because they end up, taking a bunch of yards away when we took the safety, because it's always about trying to win the football game. But I did think that both Cam and Darrell did a nice job, kind of about a 50-50 balance in terms of their playing time. They both had, some good contributions, and that was a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Jordan.
Hey, Sean, really quick before I get to my other questions, could you, or if you're able, could you clarify on, so is Tremayne out for the year?
Yes, he'll be out for the year.
And Troy, you guys said you're waiting on an ETA as well as results?
We are, yes.
And with Cobie as well?
With Cobie, it's probably going to be a week-to-week type of thing. With Troy, once I get that MRI, I have a better idea. But, I mean, you could see, on the film on that play when he's kind of in that trail position and just the way he got overextended, and he's a tough guy. So I'm not exactly sure, because we're still waiting on that MRI. But I would be surprised if he's able to go this week.
Thanks. Wondering if you could, from your perspective, and then when you went back and watched the film, could you break down Jalen Ramsey's game-clinching interception?
That was outstanding. Being able to play deep to short, they were running kind of a little switch vertical concept. And, he ended up, Mariota kind of gives an opportunity throw. And you just talk about a guy with great ball skills, length, and ability to be able to finish, going up over somebody to make that play, contested catch in a critical moment that we ended up having to have. And so, it was just a phenomenal play by him. Great concept recognition. That was the same sort of, they ran the same exact play on the touchdown that they had hit off schedule, where Mariota scrambled towards our sidelines. They just called it a little bit further out there, but it was a great job by him.
Jalen has done that a couple of times, and a couple of the guys said, including in practice. What's the reaction when he does that in practice?
Well, I think once you see it over and over again, you're just grateful that he's on your team, but you're not surprised. I mean, his length, his athleticism, his ability to be able to finish those types of plays. I mean, that's where you see he is truly gifted. And, I think at the time that he made it too, when you talk about your team having to have a play from a big time player, I thought he made a lot of critical plays yesterday, but that was certainly as big as it gets in a moment that we had to have, and was really, really awesome for Jalen. It was a big time play.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Gary.
So if Troy and Cobie, for whatever reason, could not play, who would be the next man up in that particular spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think Darian Kendrick, obviously David Long has done a really good job, but Darian Kendrick is a guy that, will get himself into the mix, as well as Robert Rochelle. There's guys that, that we have on the practice squad that are candidates as well, but but DK would be the guy that, you look at, with what he's done throughout the preseason and in training camp and in practices, that we have a lot of confidence if he has to step up.
And, you're friends with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm just curious if you've had any communication with him last night or today by text or phone, just about the way your guys' games both kind of played out.
No, I haven't had a chance to. I did get a chance to catch the end of that game in the locker room afterwards. So it was a wild finish. Talk about making the plays when you had to make them in those critical moments, and they came away and found a way to do it. And I think it's safe to say both of us needed a good drink last night.
And then in terms of, starting division play, I know it changes every year. They're obviously with, what happened in Seattle, now what's gone on in San Francisco, with Garoppolo and Trey Lance and whatnot. How do you look at Arizona specifically in the division as you start, playing it in the NFC West?
Yeah, extremely competitive. Interested to really kind of dive deep into these guys. We've got 2 games of inventory. There's a couple different things, personnel wise, but very similar in terms of the continuity that they have with all 3 of their 2 play callers on offense and defense and special teams coordinators. So, looking forward to kind of diving into these guys a little bit deeper, but really I look at it as, every single week, it's really about trying to put together a great performance and trying to go 1-0. I think if you look at the totality of the season, you end up getting yourself, too far ahead and you don't focus on being in the moment. And so we know these divisional games are very, very important, Gary, because, if you win your division, that's the best way to ensure yourself a playoff spot and a home playoff game at that. And so those are things that are always important, but we do just try to take it a week at a time. And this represents our first divisional game, and it's going to be a great challenge. And, they'll be riding high with that momentum that they had, that they, were able to finish the game the right way in Vegas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ryan.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for fitting me in here. I have a big picture NFL, two questions on the same topic for you.
Okay.
8 teams, 8 winners of games in the first 2 weeks of the season have come back from more than 10-point deficits to win. We know you have a awesome record of when leading at halftime, turning it into a win. Why is that, John? Is it getting harder to manage these games at the end? Why are so many teams coming back, or so many teams blowing these fourth quarter leads? How hard is it to manage these games here at the end of the fourth quarter? Is it getting harder than it ever been?
Well, I think, there's explosive plays where you can strike quickly. There's, certain plays. I mean, you look at our game, I thought one of the plays that was key and critical for them to be able to get back in the mix, you have a block punt for a touchdown. So there's those game changing types of plays, but I think the overall, I think probably all of those games have a little bit different narrative. You're watching around the league, you see that Browns Jets game yesterday, they got a miscommunication on a coverage that leads to, their first touchdown that ends up making it a one score game for them. So I think it's just the explosiveness of the ability for people to strike quickly, whether that's offensive big plays, whether it's special teams big plays, defensively. And that's why football is the greatest team sport there is, because you have to have all 11 guys on the same page, playing as one, understanding the intent behind the plays, or whatever we're doing offensively, defensively, being able to cover in unison on teams, being able to protect and then transition. So I think the reason why, we've been able to have some decent success is because our players have executed in those most important moments. Jordan asked me about that interception from Jalen, and, without that play, it might be a different conversation that we're having today. And so those players making those plays in those big time moments, I think, usually ends up being the difference. But it's just such a competitive league, and I think that's why people love watching it so much.
Do you consider that, Sean, to be the most important part of or one of the most important part of your jobs, managing the last, whatever it is, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, timeouts, getting the plays in, like the last 5 minutes, being a game clock timeout situation manager? Is that the most important part of being a head coach?
I think it's a huge part of it. I think with those situations that you're alluding to, Ryan, a lot of those come up in those end of the half, end of the game situations and scenarios. And that is a key factor for, one of your job responsibilities as a head coach. And in a lot of instances, I'm leaning on people that, because you've got a lot of different things, I think it's ultimately about the collaboration. But I don't think there's any question, but I think your job as a head coach is to get your team to play competitive, good, complete football for 4 quarters. In addition to being able to manage that game, and a lot of those decisions that you're talking about do come up, with those 2 minutes left in the game, and the different ways to be able to handle it accordingly, to be able to ultimately come away with the one goal that every single team has every time that they step on the field, and that's to get the win.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome, Ryan.
Sarah?
Hey, Sean, Bobby has 2 sacks through the first 2 weeks. I'm just curious, is there anything that stood out to you about the way he's played so far this season?
Yeah, I think he's done a great job. He better have gotten that sack yesterday where he comes free unblocked when the line slides. So that one yesterday, I think I maybe could have made that one, but Bobby is a baller. Great communication, great leadership. He's just got such a steady presence throughout the course of games. I think you feel his physicality with some of the knockback tackles, but he's as advertised. He's an absolute stud. Really been pleased with what he's done. Coach Beek does a great job. I think Ernest Jones had a big game yesterday as well. So really from our inside linebacker position, I think we've gotten great production from these first couple weeks, and real credit to Bobby, real credit to Ernest, and also Coach Beek doing a great job with those guys.
And then Jalen was telling us about how Raheem came to his house last week, kind of just make sure he was okay and wasn't being too hard on himself. I'm guessing that's not a surprise to you to hear that. But what kind of coach and how would you describe Raheem?
I mean, I think you kind of, the question answers itself. He's special. He's got such a great way about himself. I've heard it said, and you guys have probably heard me say it before, Sarah, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think Raheem cares so much. He's highly invested in the human beings and also wants to help them be the best player that they can possibly be. But not surprised, but I sure am grateful for the leadership that he has. He's like a big brother to me. I mean, we have obviously a very special relationship, but he's a great coach. He does such a great job of just having great emotional intelligence on how to reach these players in an authentic and genuine way. And those are the kind of things that are never taken for granted, but Raheem never ceases to amaze me.
Where do you learn that as a coach, or is that just who he is?
Yeah, I think that's who he is. I think that's one of his gifts. He's got a lot of things that make him very unique and special, but you guys know from talking to him too. I mean, this guy's got an incredible ability to be able to just have such a zest for life, to pour into people. And he just got great awareness. I think his situational awareness, his emotional intelligence on knowing how to pick and choose and press the right buttons. He's one of the best I've ever been around that can be demanding on players and be honest with them, but know how to do it in a way that makes guys disarmed instead of defensive. And I think that's a great trait. And then he also really, is aware of, when guys need their arm around them or when they need to be pushed in the right way. And, I think, I thought it was awesome that Jalen mentioned that to you guys the other day, because just one of the many things that shows, what a special coach he is and how important that player coach relationship can be, even when you're the best in the world at what you do, like Jalen is. Everybody likes to be able to feel supported and believed in when you go through a little bit of adversity. And, I think that was on display yesterday with the way that Jalen responded like an absolute G.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Kurt?
Hey, Sean, the end of game management, when you are in this situation where you're up by 6 and you take the safety, is that a play you practice? How much do you talk about that, and your thoughts on how well it was?
Yeah, you know what? I think it is a play that we practice on special teams. That we actually did it on Saturday morning in our special teams walkthrough. And so it's never come up ever in my coaching career. And I would be interested to see the last time that it actually came up in an NFL game. I bet it's been a long time, but it was yesterday, and John Wofford deserves a whole lot of credit for him being able to kind of suggest it. And then I'm thinking, man, that is exactly the right scenario, because we didn't run off enough time where maybe you could say like, all right, can you run one of those plays where you kind of just sprint the quarterback out, throw it away, and hopefully the clock expires. But because we were up, by 6 points, you're saying, you know what, let's go ahead and not risk getting another punt block. Let's try to run off 7-8 seconds with 13 left. And then you give a chance to have to get that punt after the safety. And maybe they get one shot, but we felt like the percentages would tilt in our favor. And you got to give John Wofford credit for kind of putting that thought in my mind. And then our guys did a good job of being able to execute that.
So just to follow up, when John made that thought, was it a slam dunk? Yeah, let's do it.
100%. Yeah, it would be, because, your other option is, when you're really just thinking about it and the percentages and what it would take for them to actually be able to pull it off, we felt better about, taking the clock down. Obviously, when we did end up punting after that safety, you do not want to leave the ball out of bounds. You want to leave the ball in bounds, hopefully run off a little bit of time there as well, and then give them one last shot where you're in your kind of your Hail Mary prevention type of defense. And so we felt like that was definitely the best way to play that. I think it worked out the way that we wanted. It was a little bit more stressful than it needed to be, but it's awesome by John to have that come to his mind. And I'd like to think we would have gotten to that without him having to say it, but I'm sure grateful that he did right away.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Jordan?
Hey, sorry, Sean, just a quick follow-up now that you mentioned that whole situation, or is Riley, did he get hurt on the play? Is he okay? Or
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you get a block punt like that, I think he probably, he got a little bit banged up. I don't think he was feeling totally 100% great, but, didn't come out on the injury report. But to say that when you get, a punt block the way that it did, that he wouldn't be a little bit sore, I think that's probably safe to say.
thanks.
You're welcome.